These computers aren't made to do everything. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a lot of resources to cast and.
It's true. It is so frustrating though. Anyway, I know I'm so sorry that you're frustrated. I promise I'm just as frustrated with you guys. Okay, so we've already done this. We were in the constructor, right? Then we're going to the render. Great. Then we're going to the beautiful. Okay, and here we go. Drum roll, please. We are in the render. Oh, so let's talk about why. Well, the constructor runs one time. It sets up the DNA. You were born once, right? Just because you've gone through a life change doesn't mean you get to be reborn. I've heard of people becoming reborn, but you're always like, this person's a little off, right? No one's yet to ever get completely reborn, right? Well, you know what I'm talking about. Nobody gets completely to be reborn, unfortunately or fortunately. Believe me, I've tried. So we are in the render. We hit our debugger. You can see that our state there still shows 2 because we are at the top of the render, so we haven't actually seen the updated value. But we can look in our console if we actually want to poke around. We could say this.state, and we do see that our value is 5. And when we continue, our clock adjusts. Okay, so this is the overarching idea of component did mount. So let's build a quick clock. Okay, this shouldn't be too bad. So let's go ahead and start with our, let me just remove all the debuggers at the moment, or I'll just comment them out. I'll probably bring them back later. Okay, so the value, what should we have inside of our state when we're dealing with a clock? Yeah, go ahead, Colin. Day? Yeah, maybe. Hour. Let's think even bigger picture. Like, let's make this. I want to make this clock stupid easy. Like, I want to make it as easy as possible. Like, we could definitely do hours. We could do minutes. We could do seconds. Like, I agree, those are all great things. What if it was just really easy? What would we have in there?
Number.
Just time, right? Like, if we just had something that said the time, that would be pretty tight. So let's just go ahead and make time. Because we all got a little bit of time. I want to open this too. I don't want this to open on the big screen. Okay, it did. Great. And inside of our time computer, but as soon as I try to move it here, okay, here we go. Yeah, oh my God, this is going to be the death of me. Okay, so what would be a good initial time? What time is it right now? Yeah, so how do I get the current time? Because I want to be able to run this any day. New date? Okay, so new date gives me some kind of thing. There's a nice way to format it, which is just to say dot to locale string. Okay, so this is just going to give me a little bit of time. I'm going to not set state in my component did mount for now. And instead of saying this, that value, I'm going to say time. And I'm just going to go ahead and remove the word clock. Okay, should we see it?
Yes.
Locale time. Well, locale string. Okay, so right now when we do that, we'll refresh our page here. Should have done a hot refresh. And we get, okay, it's February 22nd, 2024, 18 and 25 seconds p.m. Is that correct? Yeah, pretty good. It was a little while ago, right? It's no longer. So what's wrong with our clock? It's stagnant? Static? Yeah, I would say that's not the greatest of clocks, right? So what can we do? What do we need to add? What do we need to change?
I keep refreshing, and every time I
To add 1 to the seconds.
Oh, what's that? It's not.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah. Shaky.
What else? What are some of our ideas? How can we make this update? David? Okay, how would we do that?
We would have to.
Thinking about some of the stuff that we're learning today. Sorry? Set a timer? What kind of timer? Set. Doug? Okay, and what method would we have to call to do something like that? I'm hearing things. Not a life cycle method. How do we get something to keep calling every so often? No. Set up. What's that number? Set interval. Do we remember set interval from one? Callback.
That was it.
It literally takes in a callback, right? Okay, so let's go ahead and adjust our code. So if I want to start this, where would be a good place to start this in my code? So constructor, we don't want to worry about side effects. Render, if we're calling set state and render, we're going to hit an infinite loop. So right after the component mouse, and how many times will we want to start this action? Just one time, right? Okay, so let's go ahead and bang out a method here. So I'm just going to say set interval. Set interval takes in a callback function, if I recall, right? So this is just going to be an anonymous function. And I'm going to do two things in this. I don't think so. I'm going to do two things. I'm going to console log, because this is going to prove a point later. I'm going to console log our new date dot to locale string. Okay, so I know that's not really doing anything besides printing something to the console, but that is to prove a point later. And the last thing that I want to do is, what do I actually want to do? What am I actually going to want to do? What's my actual goal? I like that. Anybody else have the same idea? Yes. Yes. Right? We'll just say yes, nod. Right? We need to set the state to get this moving, right? So, okay, so we're going to say this dot set state. And I'm going to update my time to be new date. And I know we could set this up to be one variable that I log and set, but I don't really care. Calling the date is cheap. And how often do I want this interval to fire, this callback? Okay, so every 1,000 milliseconds, right? Milli means 1,000. Okay, so this looks pretty good. Yeah. Okay, let's try it out. So we'll go over here, and now we have a clock, right? Just pretty basic clock. Obviously, we could style it. We could make it really sexy and whatnot. But for now, just a clock. MBD. So in order to actually prove this next point to you, we have to go back and make a small couple changes. This is easier to prove with routing, but we haven't created routing. So instead of that, let's do something else. So in our app, let's go ahead and add a state called show clock. Okay. So this dot state dot show clock. Oops, I don't know what I'm doing. This dot state is equal to an object that has show clock pointing to, we'll start with it pointing to true. And let's have a button that toggles whether or not we show this clock. Does that sound fair? All right, so I'm going to add a button here at the top. So I'll say button. I don't have that yet as a component. And I'm just going to say toggle clock. And I'm just going to add a quick listener onto this button. So I'm just going to say on click, we will this dot handle toggle. Okay, so I'm just, as soon as I click this, I'm going to fire some function that I haven't declared yet. So let's go ahead and make it. Yeah, I'm getting some kind of error as well, but that's because there's no this when we do state like that. Okay, and so now we will make our method. So we'll say handle toggle. Do I care about the event? Not really, I'm just toggling. And so I will call this .set state, and we will take in, I'm going to refer to the previous state. So should it be an object or a callback?
Object.
Why do you say object?
Because the state was object. You want to
Sure, but I want to refer to it because I'm going to do whatever the opposite of what the current state is.
call that.
Callback. Yeah, you talk yourself into it. So we'll just do previous state. And this is just going to return a method that has show clock pointing to previous state show clock, and I will do the opposite of that. So the not operation. Notice that I am doing an implicit return, right? I'm wrapping my object in parentheses, and that way I don't need to use the return. All right, so let's go check, and we have our toggle clock, and we can click it, and nothing currently happens. Right, so things to note are the implicit return there.
How does it look if it wasn't implicit return?
I would just have regular curly braces and then say return and then make the object. But I don't have to do any logic in this, so I'm just doing it like this. So let's make clocks visual dependent on whether or not that button is clicked.
Oh, yeah.
So I will, in JSX, just do something like, I'll just check to see if show clock is true. So this state show clock, I will show the clock. Otherwise, I will just show null. Okay? Right, that is our ternary. And let's go check it out. So we go here and we can toggle off, toggle click, toggle off, toggle click, toggle off, toggle click, right? It's working. Any questions on this? So we've got our clock. We've got it ticking every second. And now we've just made a little button that toggles whether or not we actually show the clock component. Any questions from any of y'all? Yeah.
So line 16 says if this dot state dot show clock,
Yep.
then show clock, else don't.
Yep.
Okay.
That's all it says. Null doesn't show up in React. So null just makes it invisible. Invisible. Yep.
Would you normally put that in the app.js so you create like a component to handle the top?
It depends on what your app is. So the question is, would we normally add that state functionality into our app.js? It really depends on the application and what you're building. I generally just have my app try to control routing, but we haven't learned routing yet. But this is kind of a form of routing if you think of it, like deciding which component to show. So that's why I put it in here for this example. We will learn routing soon, very, very soon. Okay, so hopefully we've kind of got this part understood, yeah? So why did I go through this trouble to show you the point of toggling, right? Because it doesn't seem to add anything to our clock. Well, let me demonstrate to you my point. So I'm going to refresh, and as promised, we are going to print things to the console every second. Yes? This is happening because we create that set interval when the component mounts. Okay? When I click the toggle, is the component still mounted? No. We no longer see the component. It is no longer mounted. So if I click show toggle, what happens? It mounts again. So if it mounts again, what happens? What's the order?
It renders.
First thing it hits is what? Then it goes to the,
Render.
and then it goes to, and then what happens in components that mount?
It said
Well, it creates that set interval, right? So how many times are we calling constant log now?
2.
Right. So if I toggle the clock and I turn it off again and I turn it back on, now how many times are we constant logging?
3.
Okay. So if we had a crazy user and they did this a bunch of times, how many times are we constant logging? We're constant logging 19 times the exact same thing. Does that seem like a good thing or a bad thing? That's a bad thing, right? We are putting the exact same event over and over again. That sucks. That could hinder performance. This could lead to problems. So this is where we're going to bring in the big dog. Component will unmount. All right, rough. Component will unmount is another method. So inside of our clock here, we're going to add component will unmount. Will unmount. So if you put some kind of listeners on the DOM, let's say you're listening to the window or the document to see if it resizes, something that you're not using your React for, right? Usually you don't do DOM manipulation, right? You don't listen for clicks on elements or anything like that. You handle that via React. But like window resizes or changing directly the title on the page, like right here. See how ours says React app? There's a way to update the title as somebody types something in or something through direct manipulation. That or adding a set interval. These are things that are being handled by the browser API instead of just our React. So when we create these and we put these in our component did mount, when we go to unmount, we want to clean these up, right? So just like if you cook a whole meal in your kitchen, you're not really done yet until you've cleaned up the kitchen, right? Otherwise, you'll run out of dishes, and your house will stink, and things like that. So there's a couple things. So how do we turn off a set interval? Do we know? Okay, well you can do that with something called clear interval. But we need to have the right identification of which interval to clear. So up here, when I create set interval, I'm going to add an object to this. I'm going to say this.timer, and I'm going to assign that to set interval. Set interval is going to give me back this interval's ID. And in my component will unmount, I'm going to clear interval, and I'm going to pass in this.timer. So I'm going to say, I want to clear that interval.
This dot time or this dot timer?
Timer. I misspelled the other one. This.time would be confusing because we have our state.
So when you did that, this dot timer, did that?
That just adds a property on our
Constructed
clock
on the clock.
that has the timer property.
Okay.
That's all. It's not in our state. It's just another property on the class or on the object.
Okay.
And then we're just accessing that, and our component will unmount. Any other questions on this one? Okay, so now that we've cleaned our kitchen, let's go check out how the meals look. I'm gonna turn it off, turn it on. Oh, and we only have the one. So I'm gonna click it like a maniac, like as if I'm thinking I'm playing Cookie Clicker still. Love the game. And we still just have the one listener. So this is a significant improvement to creating a brand new listener or a change every single time. Questions on that?
I'm
Yeah.
not sure what change I'm supposed to be seeing.
Oh, we're only console logging the one thing. There was a time when we added a second, third, fourth, fifth console log to every time. Yeah, Doug.
Some other examples.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Some other examples. Let's say I'm listening for the window resizing. Window dot add event listener resize. I would want to remove whatever function I put on there. Those are the main ones. You don't actually have to usually do this that much, to be completely frank. But there are times you do, and it's important to know that you will use component will unmount for that.
Can you just show the code one more time?
Yep.
Question.
Yep.
This timer is that variable?
This timer is now, we're adding a property to our clock class. Rubber baby buggy bumpers clock class.
Is this right? No, that's not right. Okay.
But that's what he's saying.
Should
Any other questions? So we're not going over this today. I think it's, probably tomorrow we will talk a little bit. Maybe tomorrow. I don't know if we'll have enough time. Because we're going to work on the lab today. But we'll start to talk about networking as well. So like that's going out and hitting. Right? If you wanted to add Axios to your projects in React, the way that you do that is when this is not running, you just do npm install Axios. You can now install your Axios on the front end. You don't have to add the script to the back end, or script to the HTML, sorry.
So this is over for the script?
Yeah.
So it's a wrap.
It's a wrap.
Okay.
The script is done. It's a wrap. You created a shortcut for it? Cool. Well, if you want, you can go back to regular DOM manipulation.
I will not do such a thing.
Let's not be rash.
So that's how you install Axios. If you wanted to call an Axios like to get all your Ghibli movies, we will do this together later. But this goes in your component div mount. This is now like Axios.get
You could import it?
movies. Yeah, and you have to import it at the top. You would say import Axios from Axios. Okay, I'll let you futz around with that until we actually go over it. But that's another good use of your component did mount. Okay, the component did update. That happens every time there's a change in state or props. Sometimes you have to check those out. Component did catch, we'll talk about that some other day. No real big deal, just catches errors. And you can help use the error handling to render a different component. So instead of your whole app breaking, it goes like, oh, that didn't work, let me render the rest of the app. That's all. Definitely read the docs though, and become familiarized with the other lifecycle methods. Okay, be aware that the lifecycle methods. Be ready to talk. Someone says lifecycle methods in an interview, don't look at them like you've never heard of it, right? It's like, oh yeah, I know, constructor, render, component to mount, component did update, should component update, get derived state from props, component will unmount. You don't have to know what they're all doing, but at least know component did mount and component will unmount, as well as constructor and render. Okay?
Yeah.
All right, yeah.
So component did mount. What does it do?
Component did mount runs one time, right when the app has mounted, when the component has mounted.
When the component is mounted.
Mounting means it's on the screen, it's ready to rock and roll.
Okay. Alright.
Component will unmount is what happens when a component they often refer to it as about to die. It's about to leave the screen. It's gonna crash, right? It's gonna go home. It's done rocking and rolling. Any other más preguntas?
No matter.
All right, John and Jenny, can you guys post groups? There is the new lab of